Welcome to the Building Renaissance Leaders podcast. We build digital reference library for leaders. Here's your host, Vic Vogel.
Hello, welcome to Building the Renaissance Leader podcast. My name's Victor Vogel, and this evening I want to talk a little bit about a topic I ran into over the holidays. I wasn't going to do a podcast till after the first, but I read this article, and it was out of a psychiatric journal. And when I read it, it just rang so clear to me. It answered a lot of the questions I had about the relationship of social media and the ability to relate effectively using social media. Now, why is that important? It's important to me because this is the chosen medium that we have today. And it's a medium that more and more people are using to try to provide help and development to other people. And in some cases, I felt like maybe that wasn't getting across the way it should. And I think there's some aspects of that that are true, but there are also some issues and some opportunities we have to actually use this medium to effectively develop people the way I seem to feel like we could do it when I was a consultant. So let me sort of explain that a little bit. And then I'm going to show you just a segment out of the article I read explaining why I think we can use social media to develop and mentor and coach and consult with people in an effective way. And the only thing I add to that is there are some caveats to that. And I think hopefully what I would like to do is share this with everybody so that you can, if you are a consultant or you are a coach or you are a mentor and you're trying to use social media to apply any of those particular professional approaches, uh, it is possible, it sounds like, at least as we become more proficient and more effective and the technology gets greater, again, the caveats are the things that we need to keep in mind as we do this. Now, the question became to me, how can you do that? Is that possible through social media? And I think, given early on when we were talking about less of this video conferencing and more just text messaging or emails or whatever it might be, that was difficult. That was very difficult because you did not have the interpersonal communication relationships. Social media cuts out so much of interpersonal communication. Therefore, so much interpersonal relationship, the ability to connect effectively. And I've said this in so many of the podcasts that I've presented lately. You just can't do this unless you can connect. You can't be that effective. So the question becomes, is it possible to do this now with what I'm doing with you now, social media? And the answer is yes and no. Okay. If we're doing it like I'm doing now, where I'm simply providing you some information you want to hear, I'm not trying to affect you change. I'm trying to say you have the possibility to affect people using social media, therefore influence them and help them make the behavioral changes they need because you develop this social relationship, this interpersonal relationship, and it's normally at that smaller hierarchical level that span of control of 1 to 5 or 6 people that you're working with, that's reasonable for you to stay in significant contact with. Um, so as as we come to understand this, they began to do some social media studies, and I'm going to take a second here and try to pull up. Um, Here's the article, just a piece of the article um, that I want to spend some time going over with you, just so we can look at this. Let me try to get to a beginning sentence here. Uh, Empirical, this is out of a journal. I will put the link to this in the video so you can go get this and really grasp this. It's pretty technical, but it's written well enough so that you can have some understanding. If you are a coach, a mentor, or a consultant, you will have some understanding of what they're talking about. Uh, but there was some empirical testing of this hypothesis. And let me go back up and see if I can go just a little further back up here and see if this. Okay. Indeed, one key difference which may separate how the brain handles online and offline, that would be person to person, social networks, is the unique capacity afforded by the internet for people to hold and simultaneously interact with millions of friendships. So maybe this word friendships isn't the right thing. Maybe that's not what we need to be calling all these people that subscribe or like what you do or whatever. They're really not friendships. The ability to really develop friendships as we know it from that offline social networking environment, uh, they're normally probably not friendships. Empirical testing of this hypothesis is a most fruitful area of investigation stemming from research into the fundamental similarities and differences between these two social worlds at a biological level. In other words, the stuff that literally impacts you well enough. And for example, the way I associate that when it comes to communication is uh, if you have someone and you're trying to provide a situation where you're trying to tell them that you're concerned about them. So you maybe you're not close enough to do this. Uh, so you send them in a hug emoji, and when they see that it does have an impact according to the science. It has about the same impact as if you looked at a picture. So a picture can instill some sense of emotion. Like every time I look at a picture of my granddaughters, I feel a sense of love. I mean, I feel the emotion, but it is not biologically doing the same thing to my body as if I were hugging my granddaughter. If I was hugging my granddaughter, it literally works on my my brain, my nervous system, all that goes along with that nervous system, my whole biological body that's impacted by that reaction, because I have both a haptic, or what we call a touching experience, as well as a proximity experience. I'm close. I'm very close to you, so I'm very much into your personal space. That normally doesn't happen unless somebody lets you in there and you feel comfortable with you. But when you're hugging and you're squeezing a person, and it's done with sincerity and concern and compassion and empathy, your body reacts, it releases the hormones, the oxytocins, the serotonin, the various hormones that relax you and make you feel comfortable, reduce the cortisol. This normally creates the stress in your body, gets reduced even more. The hugging sensation itself through the brain and the nervous system tells your body this is a pleasant thing. This is something you should stop and enjoy and relax. So that's what's going on here when we say biological level. Um, when defining friendships under a broad context, people who maintain contact and share an emotional bond, two patterns are prominent across the diverse range of real world social networks. The average individual, for example, has around 150 friendships, but this is highly variable between individuals. And this is made up of 5 hierarchical layers consisting of primary partners, intimate relationships, best friends, close friends, all friends, which follow a size scaling ratio of around 3. Each cumulative layers is 3 times bigger than the last and therefore has set average cumulative inclusive sizes of 1.5, 5, 15, 50, and 150 respectively. The patterns of average number of 150 total friendships or connections and the scaling size of the 5 hierarchical levels of relationships. Let me get this off of here. Sorry. Uh, Making this up have been found across regions and time periods within various human organizations, ranging from hunter gatherers societies earlier in history and historical village populations, armies, residential camps, to personal networks and modern European government, states, cities, those kinds of things. So, thus, given the unprecedented potential that online social networks allow in terms of number of connections and the varied context that these takes place over, it is imaginable that these extraordinary environment may allow these two apparently set aspects of real world social networks to be bypassed. However, recent findings have confirmed that user to user friendship connections, posting patterns and exchanges within Twitter, Facebook, and online gaming platforms all indicate a similar average of general friendships around that 150, despite the skew of like the millions of friends, etc., that comes on social media, along with maintaining the scale sizes of hierarchical structure of the 5 distinct friendship layers determined by reciprocal exchanges. Therefore, even within the unique realms of online social networks, the most fundamental operations of human social networks appear to be relatively unchanged. And I won't go much further in that for you, but there you go. The same kind of social patterns we're evolving in our offline, real world, face to face social networking scenarios also apply to, or appear to apply to, the social network areas like gaming. Gaming is, you could very easily, I mean, people get very engaged, and normally you're not dealing with 20, 30, 40 people in a game. Most of the time, I see gamers are dealing with a smaller number of relationships where there tends to be a more interpersonal connection. They often become friends with each other and meet in different places. I know my son become friends with some of these people, and they actually go meet and they get to know each other personally outside of the social media realm, which sort of reinforces what this article is saying. Okay, so how does that apply to us now as coaches, mentors, and consultants? If you're going to adhere to this kind of a relationship on a social media environment and you want to affect behavioral changes, you have to establish the connection, the interpersonal connection at that level where you are on the more personal realm, because then people can begin to trust you, they can begin to feel comfortable with you, they begin to accept you as an influencer in their life, they see your confidence, they see you're approachable, you're relatable to them. All of these things happen because you effectively interpersonally communicate with them. If you didn't communicate, if you didn't have that interpersonal communication skill set, all of those things that you try or attempt to do that relate to this social ability aspect begins to falter. It begins to seem insincere or not authentic. That's why when you go away, I'm thinking when people, I was thinking, wow, you go away to this leadership training course and you learn something like active listening, and you go in and you're part of a 35 or 40 person class in a hotel room, and you have a table of 6 people, maybe 8 at the max, hopefully, and that is your small group that you're working with, that consultant has you work through things, but the consultant themselves really never attach or get associated with that group. That's why when I worked inside consulting with organizations and I was really trying to affect their change behavior and get past the resistance phases, I always worked in groups of 6 or 8. And it was an ongoing relationship for a period of time before I moved to another group. So that was the advantage of going top down on that, is the leadership basically had the authority to hold in a captive audience for a while. Then it was my responsibility to go in and take that captive audience and turn their attitudes around to one of being collaborative and cooperative and collegial in their relationship with me and the organization leadership who were trying to implement this new behavior change model. So to do that, you have to have a certain set of interpersonal communication skills. That's why I conduct the course I do. It's called the Interpersonal Communication Leadership Course, and it is online. And I've been struggling with. I haven't really jumped into it in great intensity yet, but now I'm getting excited about doing this because pushing a little harder because I restrict that class to 6 people. It's a seminar kind of class, the kind of thing it's if you were a graduate level student in college, many times you used to have courses that were seminars where a little bit of information was shared to, to help you gain the knowledge you need. But then the real learning took place in all the discussion and dialogue between the individuals in a small group of people, small being 6, 8 people at the most, um, certainly not less than 3, but 6, 8 people at the most. There was the ideal environment to conduct those kinds of educational, sort of self discovery learning experiences. Now, could this, because we are dealing in this societal, the sociability level of smaller groups of people, we have the potential of becoming more personal with these people because we close the gap. We close that gap of getting to know each other and being able to spend time. Now, this course I extended out over 3 months. I have 2 hours a night, one night a week, or sometimes it's days whenever the class feels like it's best for everybody in the class. But one time a week for 2 hours, we meet and we have 2 and maybe sometimes 3 hours if they get heavy into the discussion of just highly interactive learning experience based on the knowledge that they have received and they're using, plus all the experiences from the exercises and the homework that they do during the week prior to that class and the week after that class when they try to go back and apply it. And then the next week they come in, we sort of recap that week and talk about what worked, what didn't work. And then we talk about the new subject for a while and get back into the same thing. For that to work, you have to have time to have those discussions. You have to have the closeness of the interpersonal interaction for everybody to trust each other and realize they're learning and growing from that experience. Then you have to have the time to go out and experience it, good and bad. You know, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to screw it up some. And so you come back, you get a chance to discuss that again in the safe, closed, smaller group, more personal environment. And it appears that that environment, if you have something like video conferencing, like I use on this course, where the mics are open all the time, the videos are open all the time, everybody can see what everybody else is doing, at least shoulder up. Uh, the you get to see this working. It gives you a more comfortable feeling online of feeling like you're getting to know somebody, you're feeling comfortable. And many times when I've had these experiences online, you develop relationships with people so they become resources for you down the road. Resources who you trust, are competent, you feel comfortable with their ability to have an opinion that might influence or affect your behavior. That's how you change. That's how you get a person to go back from a learning environment and literally actually make the behavior changes in the employees that are working for them. Because they learned that you don't do this by going back to 45 or 50 employees in an environment, a shop floor, or maybe you got a customer service center filled with 30 to 50 employees. You don't do that by going in and trying to get on the megaphone or a microphone that has speakers and say, "Hey, da 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 da. Here's something now. This is what you need to believe." That doesn't impact people. You do that by breaking it into smaller groups and making those groups work effectively for you. And you learn that from this experience that you just went through. So these are all things that now I'm beginning to see how the social media can impact. The caveat to this is I'm not sure this is working well with the webinar kind of concept where you're doing 50, 60 people at one time. You're trying to answer 10 questions. Even if you answered 30 questions, you probably didn't get the 50 or 100 people, many of the other people satisfied in terms of, and there's no way for you to have that feedback, that ongoing, totally interpersonal communication, looping dialogue where you say something, they hear it, they provide you feedback, you actively listen to it, you keep discussing it until you come to a common understanding and meaning. Don't get that in a webinar. You don't get that in a webinar. You don't get it in a offline large webinar or large workshop format either. That's the interesting part. I think it doesn't work there. That's one reason why only 25% or less of people say they make that what they learn in a workshop, they come back and are able to apply. Now it makes so much sense. I mean, uh, either way, whether you're applying your work in coaching, mentoring, and consulting online or offline, you're doing it in real life person. Keep those groups. The caveat is to keep those groups into those smaller sizes. Now, what really makes sense to me uh, uh, is the idea that there are now organizations saying, I want to eliminate that lower middle management level position. Okay. Well, this research here says that, these smaller caveat groups can be highly impacted effectively if they're kept in smaller group sizes. And that's true whether you're offline or online, it works. Okay. Particularly if you have good interpersonal communication skills. That's part of what you have to learn in order to make all this work also. It's how you connect effectively. It's how you develop that relationship. And you may think you know how to do that, but trust me, I did tens of thousands of assessments over my 40 years. And the vast majority of the time, the leader felt like they were a good communicator and they were communicating things well. And the employees had a much different opinion of that. And that was always a major wake up call that you had to go through a cycle of almost grieving. It was like, I got to deny this. That's not true. It can't be possible. I said, it's not only possible, it is true because one, the data is accurate. Two, we went down and validated the data through interviews. So you're hearing the truth here, bud. You need to pay attention. It was a wake up call. So they had to go through that process of denial and then challenging the data and challenging the assessments. And we worked through that. And then they start thinking, well, maybe there's something to that. And then there's a way of getting them to connect with their employees by helping them learn interpersonal communication more effectively. They had never been taught this stuff. They've never been taught how to communicate effectively. And most people aren't. They rely on influencers who have never been taught interpersonal communication skills to any effective level, anyway. So that's how all this connects. But what I now believe is absolutely possible and makes me feel more comfortable is the idea of us being able to do this online with you, as long as we adhere to that caveat of of one having not going beyond our expertise. Don't go in there and try to be therapeutic with people and online, and you're not a therapist, a licensed trained therapist with the skills and the knowledge behind you to do it, because people will read through that. And if they don't, then they're going to get hurt and your reputation's going to go down the hill from there. Stay in your realm of expertise. If you're a coach, tell people you're coaching. If you're a therapist and licensed, tell people you're a therapist. If you're both, great. That's the better world out there. Yeah, I'm a consultant, so if I got into a realm that dealt in psychological areas that I felt like we needed more therapeutic approach to dealing with somebody to help them through issues, I would never do that. I would go contract somebody to help do that with this person who is licensed and professional. If you're talking about communication, yes, I'm going to be a guy who can help you do that. But there are not many of us out there right now that can help you truly learn and identify whether you are communicating effectively and then help you through it. Very few people are out there doing that and at this point in time. But it is a field that impacts everybody in every way, shape, or form. I tell people if there's more than one person involved, then everything begins and ends with interpersonal communication. So just take a few moments and think about that a little bit. Okay, so another aspect that I want to say before I jump off the line here, and that is this. If you are going to contract, if you're online, if you're going through and reading all the stuff that everybody's saying on LinkedIn and all the nice memes and pictures, which, by the way, is not necessarily communicating at the level that I'm talking about here. Uh, but they are good for drawing your attention to somebody. And so if you happen to see something that appeals and you think you might want this person to help you out, you really need to make sure that you're getting the attention you need. You trust this person, they have the expertise they have. You need to validate all that. But how they help you, if they put you in a group of 30 or 40 people, if you're trying to do that, it's one of the things that always frustrated me a little bit about LinkedIn's phone calls. Uh, that is an example where we're way beyond that sociability level where we can affect behavior change. Normally, that would be beneficial in my mind if they were, and this happens oftentimes, so I'm not trying to be critical of that phone process that they have. If it connected you with somebody who had that expertise that can help you, then that's an exciting thing to have happen. And it's another way social media can bring more people together. But just to sit there and listen to people talk about their different experiences doesn't necessarily help you get where you need to be, and normally isn't. In the end, as you go back, if you go back and research and check, used to be we would come in behind people and we would conduct assessments on them and they will have had a lot of different types of experiences of trying to change and it normally was centered around sending somebody to a mindset program of 40 people in the room and they come back and it doesn't take. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've dealt with that kind of scenario, and we had to go back and undo some things and rework them things so people got on the right track so they could change their behavior in a way that would be beneficial and effective to them. So be careful who you contract with, validate these people, be careful not to jump into something with larger numbers of people that you're going to be presented to because it's a little less expensive. It's not ex- inexpensive if it doesn't really get you where you need to be. And most of the time, those don't get the largest number of people in those rooms. I'm not saying it doesn't work for people. There's always the exception to the rules kind of thing. But the vast majority of the time, the largest number of those people go out, they start and they don't finish, they don't fail, they don't have the follow up, they don't have that attention that helps them in an ongoing way, like a consultant might work with a client inside their organization. So I read this. It's exciting to me. Like I say, I'll put it the article into, and in fact, there's a couple of articles that I may put into the description section to kind of help you out there. So if you have any kind of questions or if you want to dialogue about this more, you can certainly ask them in the comments section. Visit my community on YouTube. Subscribe, because I do these things a lot. I'll get online, and a lot of people watch them afterwards, but they don't get a chance to ask me a question while I'm here. And again, this is that one-on-one, that small group, that small personal relationship environment that allows you to ask questions and dialogue and continue going. Now, when I do these live YouTubes, and I didn't think I had time to get it on LinkedIn this time, uh, but a lot of times I'll have it on LinkedIn also. Uh, this gives you a time where you can ask questions. And in some cases, if there's just a few of us on here, I can bring you up and we can literally have a discussion between you and I. And people who are watching that then can benefit from that discussion. And if they have questions, then based on our discussion, we can look at the questions and I can pop them up here. I think I can put my little welcome message. It just pops up here like this. And so, we can look at that question, we can respond to that person, and then they get to go back. So that's one way that we can make sure everybody's interacting in smaller group environments and smaller group sections. So I'm just um, hope this is beneficial to you. Again, in the YouTube comments, you can get there. I'm going to put the link so you can go watch the podcast and the Building Renaissance Leadership podcast list that's on my YouTube channel. And you're welcome to make your comments on that channel and my YouTube community. You're welcome to go on my website and find me and contact me that way. Um, and we can get together and have chats to talk about anything you might want to talk about that relates to these subjects that I can help you with, because that's great. When we can get more one-on-one or one on two, three, four of us and talk about it, that now I'm excited about this whole social media thing, and it's going to make me feel more comfortable getting into it now that I know they have some evidence-based science behind these processes of sociality and how that can affect behavior change. You have a great day. I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.